What's up, guys? Brandon and Aaron here from Gearist, and today we are going to be taking a look at the Zoomfly number 5 from the swoosh Nike. So guys, before we get into today's review, please don't forget to go to Gearist.com, check out everything that is there, click on some of those links, it really helps us out, and also don't forget to follow us on all the socials, and while you're at that, subscribe to this channel that you are watching right now, click the notification bell, all of those things so that you see whenever there's a new review from Gearist up on our channel. Without any further ado, Aaron, how are you, sir?
I'm well, man. Things are good. How are things in Colorado?
Doing well. It's awesome. Not hot for once, finally, now that it's kind of October. And I'm pretty excited that we got our first snow, not down here, but up in the hills last night. And so I think that Vail got like 14 inches yesterday. So yeah, and it's like the 11th of October or something like that. So yeah, I'm pretty excited. So this shoe right here, guys, that we're going to be talking about today, this and by the way, pardon my light that's kind of going to be all over the place. This shoe right here, what's interesting to me, as I kind of refer to it as a duckbill platypus of running shoes. So a duckbill platypus, right? It's a mammal, but it lays eggs, but it's got the bill of a duck. It's got web feet, all these things that are kind of contradictory, or just kind of a bunch of interesting features mashed into one thing. That's the way that I look at this shoe, because is it a long running shoe? Sure. Is it a speedwork shoe? Maybe. Is it carbon plated? Yes. Is it a marathon shoe? Yes. I mean, it's kind of all of these things at once, some of which kind of seem to run counter to each other. I mean, did you find some of that, Aaron?
Yeah, absolutely. I ran it in various different ways. It's kind of like a jack of a lot of trades. But is it a master of one of them? You know, I'm not sure.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's interesting because of that. So, without any further ado, let's get into talking about exactly what we thought of this shoe. Now, before we get into the formal review of this, let's take a look at the specs. In my men's size 11, this comes in at 10.93 ounces or 310 grams. So, not super light, but also not super heavy. In terms of stack heights and drop, we've got 39 millimeters of stack in the heel right there, and 31 millimeters of stack in the forefoot for an overall drop of 8 millimeters. For sizing, both Aaron and I found this to be true to size, and actually not super narrow or anything like that. So right on where you'd expect a Nike to be. The big pros that stood out to me is one, I think this thing is great looking. Like, it's just a really good looking shoe. I like that a lot. It's also very durable, and the traction really stood out to me as being quite good. We'll talk about that in the outsole section. In terms of some cons, and there are some cons, it's a little weighty. Again, it's not the lightest thing on the block. It's also got this suction cup element that Aaron is going to talk about, because that is something that stood out to him. And then, and kind of this is one of the standout things that is a con, is the recycled version of ZoomX foam in the midsole. So what's this best for? It's going to be best for your everyday runner, but it can also do some speed. It's got a carbon plate, and it can also be your race shoe. So it's kind of all over the place with what it's good for, and I think it's really going to come down to what's best for the runner. And the price tag puts this right at $160 US. Without any further ado, let's get into talking about exactly what we thought of this shoe. And the first thing that we always talk about is the outsole. So the outsole of this shoe is actually pretty straightforward. You can see here we got rubber up front, we got rubber in the back, and we've got exposed SR02 foam, or SR02 foam right through here, which is kind of an EVA carrier. Kind of cool treads, actually, if you guys can see those. But in terms of being anything really unique, it's not. I mean, that said, it's pretty straightforward and solid. Maybe a softer rubber that you might find on some shoes, but generally speaking, you can see kind of that waffle layout there. And then right here, this little guy right there is kind of a window. I don't know if you'll be able to see that. It's a window into some of the midsole material that we'll get into, obviously, in the midsole section. Which some people have some strong opinions about, including Mr. Garrett, who will elaborate on that in just a moment. I really like kind of a simple outsole sometimes. Yes, sometimes on a trail shoe or a particular speed shoe, maybe you want something a little bit more dynamic. But with this, there's something cool about the simplicity of this. And again, that kind of waffle sort of ridged pattern that's there, I found to lend itself really well to going around turns. I even did a little bit of track stuff, mind you, not fast track stuff, but like just track stuff. Durability held up really well. I do see a little bit of wear. It's not much. You can kind of see it's a little bit darker right in there where I was putting wear on it because I tend to be kind of a mid-foot, forefoot runner. And then a little bit of wear in the exposed foam right here. But overall, I think you probably, depending on how clean your gait is, get around 500 miles of this shoe. Again, depending on the person, how clean your gait is, surfaces, all that kind of stuff. Aaron, what is your take on it?
I mean, yeah, I like the simplicity, as you say, in the outsole. Um, you know, it's not often you see like two small pieces of rubber are essentially this outsole. There's not much else to it. This, you know, while it's on the outsole, it's all just midsole, right? You're just seeing little toe protector. I didn't kick anything, so we're good there. I mean, outsole did exactly what it was meant to do. From a standpoint of it's a road shoe, it's done what it's supposed to do for me. It's simple, it's light. I'm a fan of it.
So, what did you think? And maybe this is kind of a midsole comment about this little window guy right here.
Yeah, I mean, this came for me, as you can see, if you hold it this way, it creates like this little pool. And with the nice soft EVA-esque outsole or midsole exposure, when I landed half the time smack on a flat surface, it would almost create a suction cup and hold my foot down for that, millisecond of time. But it would create a pop like every stride, like just enough to where it was annoying to, like, if you don't have any headphones or anything and you're just running, it is.
What surface was that? I mean, what did it have to be wet for that?
Just on the road. When I ran on the dirt trail, it wasn't there. But any paved surface, this foam is like just soft enough to create that like small air suction, and I mean, which is great for running on the trail. And it, while it maybe obstructed my gait or my stride a little bit, the noise was more annoying than anything else.
Got it. I mean, that makes sense. I mean, to be honest with you, I did not experience that, and I definitely ran in this in a little bit of moisture here and there. But you're not the only person to have said that. I've certainly seen that in other reviews and places.
Yeah, and to be fair, I'm 6'5". When I was running in this, I was like 240. So I'm not like your 140-pound 5'6" sprinter who's going to go out and have zero wear from here back. You know what I mean?
It is something to, I guess, watch out for. I mean, like, again, I think it's going to really depend on the runner. As we move away from the outsole and we get into the midsole of this guy, this is the first time that ZoomX foam actually shows up in a Zoomfly shoe. Now, there are three main parts to the midsole of this particular shoe, so we'll break those down one by one. The first thing is that we've got SR02 foam as kind of a carrier and also part of the midsole itself. Now, what I mean by that is that right up on top here and then under the heel, and you can see in this diagram, there's kind of a carbon plate. So that black line that you see there is actually the plate of where the carbon plate goes in the shoe. On top of that plate is going to be where it is EVA foam or the SR02 foam. And then below that plate is going to be where it's ZoomX foam. So those are the three parts, right? You've got your SR02, you've got your carbon plate, and then you've got your recycled ZoomX foam. So there's kind of a nature piece to this, and that is to say that the ZoomX foam that resides in the midsole of this shoe is actually recycled ZoomX foam. Now, what they do for that is they're going to take kind of remnants and leftovers and kind of like non-conforming parts from other shoes, and they're going to mash it together, heat it up, put it in a mold, and glue it all in place. And that's what they've done here. So I'll get into this a little bit more in the ride section, but the ZoomX foam that is in this, I have to say that it is definitely firmer than the typical normal, like full-on ZoomX foam. It doesn't really have that snap, in my opinion. That said, in terms of the overall feel of that foam, yes, a little bit firmer, but it's very stable. And I actually really like the platform of this. It's nice and wide. I think you can probably kind of see that there. Going around turns, I felt like it was pretty stable. It's a little bit weighty, so that's something that you might be concerned about again, but that is ZoomX foam in there, and it is certainly bouncier than SR02 or other just kind of traditional EVA foams, but it's still not full on ZoomX.
So this for me, I've run in a handful of other ZoomX shoes, and this was firmer. I didn't get that kind of sinking, nice feeling, and then some pushback. I got more, hit the ground, go forward. Um, Other than that, I mean, durability wise, it's been a good shoe. Uh, it's a thick boy. I mean, it's definitely got some squish there, and with that, you would think it would be a lot softer than it is. So I think you could probably go for a long time in this shoe. You said 500. I would agree with that, even being a bigger body runner. Other than that, I mean, it's foam. It's not the ZoomX I'm used to, but it's good foam.
And we should also say that one thing we haven't commented on, because again, it's probably something we'll comment on more in the ride section of this review, is that carbon plate. It is kind of, again, you're going to get the spring on the way down and kind of cushion. Again, that's a little bit firmer than traditional ZoomX foam, but that carbon plate combines with that to kind of try to find a little bit of that snapback. Again, it doesn't quite do it to the degree of some other full carbon plated, full on ZoomX foam shoes that Nike produces, but it is there. So moving away from the midsole of this guy and into the upper of this shoe, this is actually, I mean, I love the colorway of the shoe, if I'm being very honest. Yes, there are different colorways that you can get, but this kind of hyper pink, is that what it's called, is really, really good looking, in my humble opinion. I like the looks of it a whole lot. But so it's made of a dual layer engineered mesh. As you can see there, there's not really any seams on it, aside from right back here, kind of on the foxing. The support structure of this, there are a few elements, like right here on the, I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, this kind of lighter section. There's a little bit of, on the medial and lateral side, support right where the metatarsal heads are. I would assume because that's where you're going to nick things, or your foot's going to put a lot of splay and then stress the material of the shoe out. Internally, which is where the structure of this shoe comes in, which I think you can see back there. So there's this backing. Yeah, you see those little holes down there. That's kind of the backing of this shoe, which provides the support structure on that internal aspect of the shoe. The laces are part and parcel of the outside and the inside coming together to kind of form those loops there. And here's an interesting thing that we'll get into in a second, is that the tongue is free floating. It is not gusseted. There is no booty. It attaches right here at the bottom of the throat, top of the vamp, and that's it. We're usually, these days, we're seeing a gusseted or at least somewhat semi-attached tongue, but in this, Nike has opted for a completely free-floating tongue. The foam around the tongue itself is nice and thin, but at the same time provides enough padding so that you're not really feeling laces. And then around the heel cup, and the heel construction more broadly, really has a single piece of interior foam overlaying it, or interior mesh, that is nice and smooth. It holds the foot well. It's a well-shaped heel cup. It's not loosey-goosey or overly stiff. It just kind of conforms well to the foot. As I mentioned a second ago, in my opinion, it's a great looking shoe. I really like that sleek line, right? So we've got the big swoosh right down the side here. It is nice and seamless. I like it. The one thing that stands out to me as a potential for annoyance, which I think that Aaron saw this as well, is that free floating tongue here. If you are somebody where you find that tongues in the past have kind of veered off to the medial or lateral sides, the inside or outside, you may find that in this shoe because there's really nothing holding it in place. Now, that said, the mesh itself has texture to it and will probably, for the most part, stick to the rest of the upper and should stay in place. But you may find yourself in a Princess and the Pea situation where you're like, oh my God, why is this tongue sliding around on me? So just be aware of that. In terms of durability and breathability, both of those things, again, we're just getting out of summer. I definitely ran in some hot, even muggy days, which we don't really have here in Colorado very much. And it did really well in terms of being breathable and nice and cool. I didn't feel overly heated, and it is held up perfectly. Of course, I'm not taking it on a bunch of like rough and tumble trails, so I would expect it to be really durable in that instance. Aaron, what are your thoughts?
Kind of hit every nail on the head there. Starting from the heel cup, I mean, the heel cup is nice and firm. It's got some good structure to it, but it didn't ride up my Achilles. Didn't do anything like that. Nice snug fit. Yeah, the outsole here, especially around the toe box. Very nice, very durable. Again, I love the colorway. My camera isn't as cool as yours, so it looks a little faded. Um, but they are as bright as ever. The tongue is for me. I don't know if they were trying to save weight or what they were trying to do, but just a piece of elastic on the other side of the tongue attached to the inside would make this upper almost fantastic, and it's really close to fantastic right now. I have run on the trails, I have run on the road, I've run in the rain. Drains well, breathes well. Uh, Amazingly still stayed clean. So I don't know what finish they put on it, but it hasn't gotten overly dirty. Durability has been great. I mean, good upper. I really appreciated this upper for myself.
Something that I will mention that I think I touch on here a bit later is that the foam at the midsole does come up a bit. So your foot is down within the midsole a tiny bit. And again, we'll touch on this a bit more in the ride section. So that is also going to add to that stability. It doesn't really happen up here in the forefoot. It's mostly from about kind of here. So where am I? Here, back. And it's probably at the rear of the shoe, like at the back of the shoe, it's close to like 3/4 of an inch, and then right up here on the side, it's about 1/4 inch. So just be aware. Moving from the upper of the shoe and into the fit. So here's interesting. As I mentioned a second ago, or as we both mentioned a minute ago, true to size. I don't feel like it was narrow or anything like that. You feel nice and kind of in place here in the heel. There's a feeling through, and I use the word feeling deliberately because I don't think it's narrow through the middle of the foot here, through the instep. But I think it has the potential of feeling a bit narrower simply because you're going to run into that place where the midsole foam is going to come up on either side. So just be aware if you're somebody with a wider foot. Moving into the toe box, again, that foam doesn't really come up on the side here. I felt like the toe box is awesome. It doesn't come, I mean, Nike can sometimes come to a bit of a point. This does a really nice job, and on the medial side, it's spectacular. On this side, again, I'm always going to complain that stuff could be a little more foot shaped. Some brands do that. Nike is not one of them. But it's got a lot of vertical room, good splay room. Like Aaron said, there's a tiny bit of interior kind of like bumper in addition to this, but I think it's really more reinforcing from the backside of this material so that you don't blow through it as you run forward. Aaron, thoughts on the fit?
Fit. I mean, like you said, for me, size 13, standard foot, nothing wide, nothing thin, no crazy arch. Heel fit great, toe box felt great. To your point, while it's not like a natural foot shape, enough room up here, so I ran happy a lot of the time.
Speed is a very relative term, but putting some speed to it, I felt comfortable in it, and when going around turns and things like that. So the fit, I think, works well with the foot. That said, that's one of those places where we're going to talk about here next in the ride section, where it's a little confusing to me as to what exactly is the best use of this shoe.
And I'll note, Brandon, I never had to retie my shoes. So even in the rain and on super sweaty days, never had to retie them. So for me, that meant not only was the upper good, but the fit was good. It didn't stretch, it didn't do anything like that. So for me, that was a plus. Even with the tongue sliding down, I didn't have to stop.
So now we're going to get into the ride of this shoe and how each of us thought it handled. Now, the ride of this shoe is where some of the consternation amongst me, Aaron, some other reviewers is going to come into play. Now, if you're looking for this to be your carbon plated speed shoe that's like dedicated for going super whip fast, this is probably not going to be that shoe. It is carbon plated, yes. It can go fast, yes, but I think it can be also much more suited to long, steady state runs. And part of that is that while that carbon plate that I mentioned, showed you the diagram of a moment ago, which does a nice job of kind of providing some of that pop, the recycled ZoomX foam and the lack of response from that, or just, I guess, the harder response from that, is what puts it in a place where it's going to be more comfortable in that longer marathon training day type of thing. Now, while some people are going to get into this and they're going to be like, oh, awesome, this is a great one shoe quiver for me. I can take it on some light trail, right? Some gravel road, I can do speed, I can do long distance, all of those things. I think that when you're in like our position, Aaron and I, we have enough shoes that we can begin to discern what is going to be best for what. I think that if I were to use this as a shoe for a purpose, it would be for those longer steady state runs. Again, the lack of pop in the foam, which is again masked a bit by the carbon plate, is what kind of takes away from it for me. I would say though, it would be very interesting to feel actual full-on ZoomX foam and that carbon plate, and even still a little bit more ZoomX foam. That I think would take this shoe to a different place, but that's not what we're talking about today. Aaron, thoughts on the ride of this guy?
I mean, I'm kind of in the same boat, right? There was no run that I thought of specifically for this shoe. Because to your point, I've got like if I want a long run shoe, this isn't necessarily the one I go to. But I liked running long in this shoe. If I'm doing a tempo day, this wasn't the shoe I thought of first to go for a tempo day, but when I did a tempo day in it, it performed well. It's one of those shoes that it's kind of good at everything it does. But if you have the ability to have 4 or 5 pairs of shoes, I'm not sure this necessarily would be one of those shoes. At least not for me. But that being said, if you only have you can only afford 2 pair of shoes, I definitely maybe think about this as one of those 2 pairs of shoes. It felt great. I found that the suction cup when I was running faster on my toes went away, and the ride felt a little better. Outside of that, on the trail, it felt great. On the road, it did everything that I expected it to. I wouldn't say it blew me away in the ride, but it didn't disappoint me either.
Yeah, I mean, from a speed perspective, quite simply, it's not light enough to be a super speedy shoe. It's just not. In my men's size 11, it's just barely shy of 11 ounces, which if you're on trail, okay, but this is not a trail shoe. There seems like just excess material that doesn't need to be there in the midsole, and I would like to see kind of a side by side comparison of the weight of recycled ZoomX foam versus full on ZoomX foam. I don't know if the adhesive adds weight, if that's where the lack in pop comes in. Either way, like to your point, it's like, where does this shoe fit? I'm not quite sure.
I wonder if they removed the EVA on the top and replaced it with just ZoomX foam. Would that make it? Would you be able to tell the difference? Um, so there's plenty of midsole there that they could play around with. I think maybe another iteration of the midsole, and gusset that tongue, and you'll be working with a pretty fun shoe.
So while something like this, especially at $160 again, though you could probably find it on sale right now, it's a little bit less jaw-dropping, so to speak, than I would like to see. There's still a lot to like about this shoe. It's durable, it's great looking, and it's something where as it tries to put together a lot of different types of shoe into one, and it can get a little bit confusing, it also means that the inverse of that is that you can treat it as a lot of different types of shoes. So to me, that's kind of an upside again, especially if you're looking for something that is 1 or 2 shoe quiver. I think it really is going to depend on the person, if I'm being completely honest. So the price tag seems a little bit high, maybe for something that's not quite a dedicated shoe. And I think you're paying for some ZoomX foam in there that's recycled ZoomX foam instead of the real deal. I think it should be a little bit less. And again, right now you can get it on sale. Aaron, thoughts on any kind of final overall pieces of this?
The appearance of the shoe is for a lack of a better term, stunning. Like I've worn, my kids call it the pink shoe. They love it when I wear it. I've worn it to the grocery store and through the airports. It's a fantastic kind of all around shoe for an all around shoe. But it's not really marketed as an all around shoe. If you're trying to buy 2 pairs of shoes for the price of one, this is 2 pairs of shoes for the price of one. If you're buying a tempo shoe or a long distance shoe for $160, I'm not sure you're getting what you want out of something as specific as that. But I mean, it's a great shoe. I'm gonna continue to run in it. I'm gonna continue to wear it. I can't say that for every shoe that I put on in the last year, but I'll probably wear these out.
And then it'll be that pink and green when you start cutting grass with it, with that offset.
I don't cut grass. We have turf.
that's the ZoomX version, excuse me, the Zoomfly, good Lord, version 5 from Nike. We're curious if you guys have run this. What are your thoughts? Did you notice suction cups on the bottom of your feet? Did you feel like the midsole was kind of trying to do some things that over here it's one thing, over here it's another? I'm very, very curious in particular about this shoe. Please leave us a comment down below. Let us know what you think. And guys, before anything else, after you've left a comment, of course, don't forget to subscribe to Gearist. Follow Aaron and I both on Instagram if you like. I am at Gearist on Instagram. Aaron is at ARRNGARROD on Instagram. Follow us both. Like everything that we do. We really appreciate you guys. We love your comments, so let us know what you guys are thinking. Let us know what you're running in, what adventures you are taking as the weather gets cooler. Aaron, my friend, thank you so much for joining us once again today.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure, my friend.
All right, guys, we'll see you. Get out there, get sweaty, and we'll see you next time.